make sure that I'm honoring your time when we have this slot. I know that a lot of you are still working from home, and I want to ensure that we start on time and that we end on time just as we would if we were coming together in the studio. And so if you're coming to the mat a little late, it's totally fine, don't worry. Just go ahead and come on and join us wherever you are. And always throughout the practice, making sure that we're minding our own bodies. We all come to the mat with different limitations on a given day, different ranges of motion on different sides of the body. And so just considering that today is different than yesterday, is different than the day before, it's different than tomorrow. And so we tend to the sensations that we have as we come to the mat today. And so now that we're here, going ahead and folding up our blanket or our towel, putting that underneath the hips. So we're not sitting all the way back up on it. We're really toward the edge. So you can see how that sort of tipped my pelvis forward a little bit. And then we get a little lift through the low belly. So it's really the sit bones, which are the bony parts on the bottom of the pelvis, are making connection with the blanket or the towel, and then we're sort of tipped just a little bit forward. That brings a little more arch into the lumbar spine. A lot of us, especially if we have sedentary jobs, are a little rounded forward, and that presses out a little bit. So when we want to work on posture, we really want to focus on that lumbar area and bringing just a gentle curve in there. Especially, so it's not just sedentary job, it's also tight hamstrings, which we will play with a little bit today as well. But as the hamstrings become tight, it tends to pull the pelvis down, and that brings the curve out of the low back and contributes to back pain and long-term back issues. So we really want to think about that gentle curve in the lumbar spine. So go ahead and find that, and then find that little lift in the belly, a little bit of a tension there, so it doesn't feel like we're just sitting around kind of thing. There is that nice lift through the torso. We can feel heart center radiate, get a little bit open there. And then we're just bringing the hands up toward the body a little bit here, and that supports that structure. So we're not tempted to lean forward. We can lift right up through the crown. So bringing the gaze gentle or the eyes closed, and by gentle we can just look down at the floor in front of us, find maybe a drishti, a focal point, or bringing the gaze all the way closed. So we'll begin our practice by closing our eyes, going ahead and beginning to notice the breath. So we're really just becoming aware of the movement of the breath without manipulation, just noticing the movement of the breath in and out of the body. And as we're noticing the breath, also bathing the body with awareness once again, bringing in that gentle lift on each inhale, feeling ourselves grow a little bit taller, spine lengthens, we get a little space in between each vertebra. And continuing to gently move the breath in and out of the body. So you notice as there's awareness with the breath, we do begin to create a little bit fuller, more expansive breath, and going ahead and feeding that intention, drawing the breath a little bit deeper into the body with each inhale, a little lower into the chest. On the exhale, allowing the breath to fully release from the body, nice and slow and smooth. We feel at the base of that exhale that gentle tug on the belly button toward the spine, and then drawing that next breath in, nice and slow and smooth through the nostrils if it works for you, all the way to that nice full expansion of the breath, and that nice long, slow, smooth exhale through the nose. And continuing once again, coming through that complete cycle of breath. Now, as we do this, you might begin to notice that the exhale is naturally longer than the inhale. And so allowing that to be the case. The inhale is nice and smooth and full. The exhale is slow and extended. We bring it all the way until there's nothing left in the lungs. We get that little draw in the belly, and then inhaling once again. Beautiful. We're going to practice something called Nadi Shodhana today. It's alternate nostril breathing and really nice for balancing the energies of the body. There's an awful lot going on in the world right now, and this is a really nice stress relief breathing practice. It seems complicated at first, but I assure you that it's not. So just following my cues one at a time, and then you'll get your own flow with this. We'll take the pointer finger and the middle. So those first two fingers, place them on the bridge of the nose or just above that on the forehead. Then we've got the thumb on one side of the nose, and we've got the ring and the middle finger on the other side of the nose. Just gently resting them on just below where the bone is on the nose. So we start to feel the fleshy part of the nostrils with the ring and the thumb. And we're not pressing on them, just finding a place there. The gaze is gentler, the eyes are closed, the cueing will be good. And so you're just cueing just listening to the cues. As we inhale next, drawing in through both nostrils. As we exhale, pressing on the left nostril, exhaling through the right. Inhale, same side. Gently pressing on the right nostril, exhaling through the left. Inhaling, same side. Pressing on the left nostril, exhaling through the right. Inhaling, same side. Going ahead on your own. We're exhaling. Then inhaling, same side. Then we change sides. Moving at your own pace. Remember, nice and slow. Same cadence that we had in that earlier breath pattern. Maybe 2 or 3 more rounds on your own. Exhaling, then inhaling on one side, then exhaling and inhaling on the other side. As you're ready, gently releasing the hand from the face. Go ahead and place that hand back down in the lap. Gaze is still gentle or eyes closed, just coming back to that new natural breathing pattern. Allowing the body to once again breathe itself, but since we've come into a little bit of breath work there, we begin to find more expansion in the breath and that natural movement of the breath. And if the cueing is working for you, you can continue with the eyes closed if we're feeling nice and centered. We're going to bring the soles of the feet together, allowing the knees to just float out to the side. We find that bound angle shape. I want you to notice what happened in the posture as we brought the feet into this shape, because it's pretty natural to then curl forward. I want you to adjust how far the heels are from the hips to find some length in the spine, to be able to lift heart center. Get that little tuck in the belly, shoulders are down and along the spine. We bring the fingertips out to the side body, and we're finding that triangle, just like we did last week. We're finding the base points of a triangle with the fingertips on the floor, and the crown is the apex of that triangle. We're lifting very, very tall. Let's turn the palms toward the ceiling, lift the fingertips up overhead. We're bringing the palms together and then down to heart center. Aligning with the breath, inhaling, fingertips come skyward. Separating those palms, we turn them toward the side walls and then paint the side walls with the palms of the hands, moving the wrists opposite direction as we inhale, painting with the backs of the hands. Then we turn so the palms are facing toward each other and bringing the palms down, or bring the hands down to heart center. One more time, we'll inhale the fingertips skyward. This time we'll turn the palms toward the side walls, sweep them out to that triangle shape once again, and we're leaning heart center forward. So let's bring the gaze down on the floor in front of us rather than on the screen. If we're lifted up to look at the computer, we're getting a little stress in the cervical spine. We want to keep the head in alignment with the rest of the spine. So gaze is down toward the floor, just finding a few breaths here, encouraging some openness in the inseam of the thighs. As we inhale, peeling back up nice and long in the spine, let's bring those fingertips skyward. As we exhale, floating the hands behind us, we're going to find the palms on the floor and then lift heart center. Gaze is toward the ceiling, heart center presses. As we press through the palms, bring the shoulder blades down and along the spine. We're lifting heart center towards where the wall meets the ceiling. Let's move through that again with the breath. As we come up, use core strength rather than the hands to lift back up to a neutral position. Fingertips come skyward. We'll exhale, paint the side walls with those wrists. Find the base of the triangle, sitting forward. Spine is nice and long, no round there. It's heart center radiating toward those big toes. As we inhale, lifting up. Exhaling, sweeping the hands down behind us. Once again, pressing into the floor. We're lifting heart center. Radiating, using core strength, sitting back up. Beautiful. As we exhale next, we'll place the right hand down on the floor. Lift through the left pinky. Feel how you got a little taller? Draw that arm into the shoulder socket. Coming down onto the palm of that right hand. We're reaching toward where the wall meets the ceiling with the left fingers. So we're not trying to get down to the floor. It's not a big C curve. It's a nice long stretch in the left side body. Without pressing on that bottom hand, we're lifting through the top fingers. Core strength, bringing that right hand up. Let's bring that left palm down to the floor. Reach through the pinky on the right side. Grow taller. Draw the arm into the shoulder socket for nice strength and stability. And then we're reaching toward where the wall meets the ceiling. I want you to notice if you get a little heart center turn down toward the floor. We want to open that up a little bit. Open up heart center towards the sky or where the wall meets the ceiling. Just a little more open there in the side body. As we inhale, once again, we're lifting through those top fingers, coming all the way up. Let's inhale here, get taller, lift through the pinkies, draw the arms down into the sockets, space between the earlobes and the shoulders, turning heart center toward that right knee, floating the hands down in front, down and back. Inhale, get taller. Exhale, just a little more twist in the spine. As we inhale, fingertips will rise. We'll rotate back to center. Inhale, draw length into the body by lifting through the pinkies. Draw the arms down into the sockets. And then exhaling, turning heart center toward that left knee. Fingertips float down in front, down and back. Get taller through the crown. And then a little more twist on the exhale. Couple of breaths here, just getting the body used to that twisting motion. It's always a little bit of resistance in the spine to the twist. So we do them nice and slow. Give the body some time to receive. As we inhale, fingertips come skyward once again, and we'll float them down toward the side body. We're going to bring the feet out to the side and come forward. We're coming down on or coming onto our hands and knees. So let's spread that blanket across the center of the mat. Just give a little patting to the knees. We're coming on hands and knees here. So my cueing is pretty good, and you do have the visual of the video, but do ensure that we're not staring at the video, because you can cue in to what's going on in the body just as you would in a class, just tuning into the auditory cues. We're pausing here in our table shape, so the knees are underneath the hips, and that's really only about 4 or 5 inches. So getting that in nice alignment for the femur is going to protect the hip and the knee. We look down and the feet are tracking out behind the knees. We're going to place the hands underneath the shoulders and then walk them forward one handprint. That's a more natural bend for the wrists. The pointer finger is pointed toward the front edge of the mat. As we inhale, tailbone will come skyward, heart center radiates along the floor in front of us. Our gaze is on the floor. It's just a little further ahead of us. As we exhale, tailbone tips under, navel lifts up toward the spine. We press into the hands. Get a nice deep flexion of the spine that's supported. Gaze is toward the knees. Let's move through that with the breath a couple of times here. As we inhale, opening up into our cow shape. As we exhale, in your own time, whenever that is, coming into our cat shape. Extending and flexing the spine. If it feels good here, if we've moved through this, we're feeling a little opening through the spine. The next time we're rounded out, we can sink the hips down toward the heels, getting some extension through the spine, nice and long here. As we inhale, continuing to move through the places in this flow, we find our table shape, our cow, nice and open, and we can sink the hips forward. We're pressing the tops of the feet into the floor to support the knees and the low back. Go ahead and lift heart center up into that cobra snake, and then we press back, finding our table, then our cat, nice rounded spine, and sinking the hips back toward the heels, extended child's pose. So go ahead and find the places that work for you in this flow, moving with the breath. Sometimes if we've got a little tension in the side body, it feels good as we come back to sink the hips down to one side, find that child's pose, and then drawing the hips up toward the other side, little barrel roll type motion. Do what feels good in your body of this flow. Moving with your breath. And the next time we find ourselves sinking back in that child's pose, let's pause there. As we inhale, get nice and long in the spine, reaching those fingertips out along the mat a little further. As we exhale, we'll walk the hands over one knee. Doesn't matter which one, coming to one side, just reaching those hands off to the side, taking a couple of deeper breaths here, expanding the side body. On the next inhale, we're walking back to center, and then we're walking over the other knee. Reach those hands out in front of us. We're being careful with the shoulders. If this feels a little tense in the shoulder, we can always take a bend in the elbow. That's going to soften the tension in the shoulder, but we still get a nice stretch along the side body, those intercostal muscles. We'll walk the hands back out in front of us, and we're lifting back up into that table shape. Let's bring the left foot out behind us. It's going to help me with cueing. So the left foot's going to come out behind us, and we're pressing the toes into the floor. So the toes are on the floor, and we're pressing that heel toward the back, toward the side, or back toward the back wall. And we notice a nice stretch in the hip when we begin to really sink into that heel. It's also good for the soft tissue of the feet. We'll come forward a little bit, lift that foot off of the mat. I want you to think about this standing leg. Oftentimes we begin to sink into the hip. We always want to be a little lifted, create the space that's meant to be there. We're going to cross that foot off behind the body, like across the midline of the body. So the foot's coming off the mat to the right side. And then a little isometric movement here. We're not moving the hands, but we draw them toward the body. Feel that length in the spine. And then we're gazing over the right shoulder toward that left foot. Couple of breaths here. As we inhale, bringing the gaze back between the hands, we'll lift that foot, bring it back to center, and we're placing that knee back down onto the mat. We're going to bring the left fingertips to the front of the left shoulder. So we look like we've got a little chicken wing here. And we're going to open up that chicken wing, open up heart center toward the left side of the body, lengthen out the hand, and then we're sweeping that arm underneath the other, taking a bend in the right elbow as we come down onto the left shoulder and the left side of the head. Couple of deeper breaths here. This is a pretty deep twist in the spine, so we spend a little extra time here just tending the body with the breath. Helps to relieve tension in the upper shoulders. We'll place that right palm back down on the floor, really aware of that hand. We press away first, so that's a little strength in that right hand, and then we unravel that twist. We'll bring the knees wide, toes together, sinking the hips back, finding a nice deep widening child's pose. I like to lift my wrists, especially when we've been on hands and knees a little bit, so coming up onto spider fingers, or come up onto the tips of the fingers, and that lengthens out the wrists a little bit, brings that circulation into the hands. As we inhale, lifting back up, let's find that table shape once again, setting that up. And this time, the right foot's going to come out behind us. Toes are down on the mat, and we're pressing that right heel toward the back wall. Couple of deeper breaths here, length through the back body. As we inhale, we're lifting that foot out directly behind the hip, crossing it across the midline of the body. We're not bringing the spine along with it. So keeping the spine nice and centered on the mat. As we inhale, drawing the palms toward us on the floor, we get a little longer in the spine, and then we're gazing over that left shoulder. Inhaling, gaze comes back between the hands. We'll lift that right foot, bring it back out from behind, or back behind the hip. Knee comes down to the floor. Bringing the right fingertips to the front of the shoulder. Opening up that chicken wing so heart center is radiating, lengthening out that arm. And then we're sweeping the right arm underneath the left, coming down onto the right shoulder, right side of the head. Remembering to always keep the neck comfortable. Couple of deeper breaths here. Nice slow breaths. This is a great place to connect with the breath. As we inhale, we're pressing into that left hand, lots of strength. Then unraveling that twist. We'll take the knees wide, toes together, just sinking the hips back toward the heels, reaching those hands out in front of us, coming up onto the fingertips, nice extension here, It also takes a little bit of a deeper stretch into the muscles of the back to lift up onto the fingers. And so just noticing if that feels good, opening up the shoulder sockets a little bit. As we inhale, peeling back up. And we're going to turn on our knees toward the wide edge of the mat. So we should all be facing our screens at this point. Walk the hands toward the knees. We're coming all the way up onto our knees. So this is our mountain shape. It's our kneeling mountain. So we want to think once again about space between the knees, ensuring that the femurs are in good alignment in the sockets in both the knee and the hip. So we don't want to be really wide out here. That puts a little bit of stress in there. So we want to be nice and tall, tucked in the belly, lift it up through the torso, bring the shoulders forward, up toward the ears, settle them down along the back. We'll turn the palms toward the side walls, float those fingertips skyward. As we exhale, sweeping down to the sides. Beautiful. Fingertips skyward once again. We're going to pause there. Reach through the pinkies. Draw the arms down into the sockets. That resets everything. Gives us nice strength. We're going to bring the right leg out to the right side of the body. And so setting this up as well, we want ideally the arch of the right foot to be lined up with the standing knee, and we'd rather not be sinking into this standing hip. So get nice and tall. This is our standing place here. We want lots of length. Inhaling, getting tall once again. We're going to sweep that right hand down to the thigh on the right side and just glide it down the thigh. As we bring the left fingertips over toward where the wall meets the ceiling. We are not pressing with that right hand. It's just gently resting on that leg. As we inhale, turning that right palm, sweeping the hand back up overhead. And we'll sweep the hands down toward the side walls. And we're bringing the hands down in front of us on the mat. This should feel like a table shape, but we've got that right leg out to the side. Bringing the left fingertips to the front of the left shoulder, we open up just as we did before in that thread the needle shape before. Lengthen out the arm, and then we're sweeping the arm underneath the right arm, coming down once again into a thread the needle. This is a little bit of a deeper twist, so we're working with some nice deep movements of the spine today. Couple of deep breaths. We'll press into that right hand, then unraveling the twist. We're walking the hands back toward that standing knee. Let's turn the thumbs toward the front of the room, and we're sweeping the hands up right in front of us here. Turning the hands toward the side walls and floating them down. Gently bringing that right knee into the blanket. Setting that kneeling mountain up once again. Fingertips will sweep up overhead. Get a little length here through the pinkies. Draw the arms down into the sockets. We want to feel nice and sturdy in the upper shoulders. And we're going to sweep that left foot out to the side. It is natural to sink into that hip. Get that tuck in that hip. Nice length through the side body, lining up the left arch with the right knee. Inhaling, exhaling, we sweep that left hand down to the left thigh. Get nice and tall through the right hand. And we're just drifting down that left leg, just a gentle glide. Couple of deeper breaths. Beautiful. Sweeping back up with the hand. We'll sweep the hands down in front of us. Walking them forward till we find that stable table shape in the spine. We bring the right fingertips to the front of the right shoulder, opening up heart center, lengthening out that arm, and then sweeping it underneath the standing arm, finding your right shoulder and the right side of the head on the floor. Again, always making sure the neck is comfortable. Couple of deeper breaths. Sometimes we sort of back off the breath a little bit when we come into really big side stretches and these sweeping twists. But if we really tend the body with some deeper breaths, we're encouraging some more flexibility in those small muscles between the ribs and in the spine. We'll press into that left hand on the floor, pressing away, unraveling that twist. And we'll bring the left knee in and just sinking back into a child's pose, getting some neutral balance and stretching in the spine. Nice. Beginning to lift the hips away from the heels. We're going to take the blanket out from the knees at this point. Just set it off to the side. And this is where we get a little tricky. So this is a hook or crook moment. This may work for you and it may not. Just modify for how it works for you. You actually might be surprised at the level of squat that you get when we come in from the floor. Coming in from standing and coming in from that lower position is very much different. So from here, we're going to bring the right foot forward. I'm going to walk my hands a little closer to my feet. We're going to bring the left foot forward. We find ourselves in a frog shape. So I've cued this a million ways, but when I say frog, everybody winds up looking good. So we channel our inner 6-year-old and we find our frog here. Now this is actually pretty good if you've got knee issues. It's easier to come into a squat from the floor because the femur is coming into the hip and not driving down into the knee. We find Anjali Mudra. And then notice if we can put a little pressure on the insides of the knees, we can lengthen out the spine. We're also getting a really nice stretch across the sacrum, the low part of the spine. Couple of deeper breaths here. And another hook or crook moment. I want you to feel the four corners of the feet, so really grounded through the base of the feet. Begin to press into the feet. And we're lifting, coming all the way up to a standing shape. Beautiful. Take some hip swings. Just work out any tension. Now notice when we hip swing, we're always coming up onto the toes, taking a little bend in the knee. We don't want to do this. That's bad for our psoas muscle, and that's a whole different thing, but we want to make sure that when we're dancing it out a little bit, we've got some sway in that back leg when we twist. Let's take the feet nice and wide on the mat. Big wide stance. Now everybody's built, if you could drop a plumb line between your ankle and your elbow, or your ankle and your wrist. But everybody's built a little bit different, so just find what your comfortable width is here. So I've got my arms out to the sides like wings. I want you to tune into the tailbone, tip it down toward the floor. And we're going to turn that right foot towards the short edge of the mat. Let's look down at the feet and see if we can line up the right heel with the left arch. Beautiful. Now this gets a little bit tricky. I want you to be aware of the knee on the right side. We're going to take a bend in that knee. We want the knee to come over the ankle, but we're also giving a little bit of muscle pressure. We're pushing that knee toward the pinky toe. So we're not letting it come in like that. That's really not great for the knee joint. We want to feel that pressure so that we're pushing the knee sort of behind us here. Now, also, whenever we come into a bend in that front knee, we begin to feel all the pressure going that way. Torso is nice and long, lifted skyward, and we've got equal amounts of pressure through that back left foot. Let's turn the gaze over the right fingertips. Good. We'll lift the shoulders toward the ears, settle them down along the back. Turning the palm on the right hand skyward. We're lifting those fingertips. The left hand comes back and just raises that back left thigh. If it works for the neck, the gaze is toward the right fingertips. Couple of deeper breaths. I want you to think about lifting away from the floor here. So we tend to sink. We want to feel lifted through the torso so that there's not so much pressure on the legs. Beautiful. Turning that palm back down toward the floor. We find our warrior two once again. Let's take a bend in that front elbow. We'll take the back hand skyward. We begin to sink that right elbow toward the right knee. We find a place of connection here, but it's not a sinking into. It's just a connection between the elbow and the knee. Now, if this feels good with the left arm staying here, the other option is to, if the palm is facing toward that ear, the shoulder might allow the arm to come down along by the side of the head. Just feel what works for you. Good. If we're there, we're bringing the hand back up skyward, turning the palm toward the front of the room. We lengthen out that right arm, and we take the bend out of the right leg, and we find a really nice version of triangle here. Think about the T shape in the arms. They should be reaching away from each other. From here, lots of strength in the torso. Feel a little length come into the neck as we reach the head away from the body. Coming all the way up. Turning the palms down toward the floor. We're going to bring that over the toes of the right foot forward once again, turning the left toes out. Let's line up the toes, or line up the heel on that left heel with the arch on the right foot. And think about that knee. We're bending the left knee and bringing it toward the pinky toe. Knee comes right over that ankle. Good. Shoulders will come up toward the knees, settle them down along the back, get space in the neck. Beautiful. Gaze comes over the left fingertips. Couple of deeper breaths here. I want you to think about where the weight is in this shape. Balance it between the front and the back foot. Beautiful. We'll turn the palm skyward on the left hand, and we're tipping our teapots, bringing the right hand down to the right thigh, lifting through the left fingertips. Gaze is skyward. Remember, we're not sinking, we're always lifting. Let's turn that palm down toward the floor once again, coming back into our warrior two shape. We take a bend in that front elbow and begin to tip down toward that knee. Beautiful. Lifting the right fingertips skyward. I want you to feel the touch of the elbow on the knee, but no pressure there. Couple of deeper breaths. Feel nice expansion through that right hip. We take length in the left arm. Palm is toward the front of the room. Take length in that left leg. We're finding our triangle shape. It's not a big arch in the spine. In fact, the crown of the head is probably reaching toward where the wall meets the ceiling. This is a strong shape, always lifted. As we inhale, coming back up to center, turning the palms down toward the floor. Let's bring both feet, toes forward. We'll sweep the hands down, interlacing the hands behind the back. We're opening up the chest, crown of the head lifts. And then we'll sink heart center with the hands behind the back this way. And if this doesn't work to interlace the hands, we can just grasp the wrists or the elbows. But ideally, the shoulders are down and along the spine as we come into a half fold here. When we get into that half fold, we can lift the thumbs away from the hips as it feels good in the chest and the shoulders. So it's just an opener of the front of the chest, and if it feels good now, we can sink the hips a little closer to the chest, a little closer to the floor. Couple of deeper breaths here. As we inhale, lifting back up into that half fold, if we're a little deeper, we're drawing the thumbs back down toward the hips and slowly coming all the way up. Beautiful. Releasing the hands. Let's heel toe the feet a little bit closer together. We've still got some width here. And the heels are pointed toward each other with the toes out a little bit. We're at an angle. Now, a lot of people need to know where we're going to set up this leg structure. So we're coming into a squat again from standing to demonstrate the difference in the hips. And so this is going to feel a little bit different. It will probably look a little different as well. We'll sweep the fingertips skyward, bring those palms together up overhead. We're drawing them down to heart center. Follow that line of energy. Begin to take the tailbone toward the floor. So feel how that feels. Oftentimes we sort of stick it out toward the back wall. Think about just coming down with the tailbone toward the floor. At some point, the tailbone probably wants to tip backward, and that's okay as long as heart center tips forward. We're going to keep that spine in nice alignment. This might be a really good place for you today with the elbows on the knees. Gaze down toward the floor. Or we can keep bringing that tail down to the floor a little bit and bring the elbows to the inside of the thighs. Couple of deeper breaths here. Good. As you're ready, we'll bring the hands down to the floor as gracefully as possible, coming down onto our seat on the mat. We're going to turn towards the short edge of the mat. Feet are on the floor. Knees are toward the ceiling. We've still got that hips distance, that 4 or 5 inches between knees and ankles. Lifted nice and tall here. Let's bring the hands behind the thighs. Walk the feet a little bit closer to the hips. And we start to balance there between the tailbone and the sit bones, that fleshy part. Let's think about releasing the hands, opening up our wings, radiating heart center forward. Exhaling, bring the hands back behind the thighs. Let's inhale, bring the fingers out in front of us. Get really tall through the crown. Exhale, give ourselves a little hug. Rounding out, forehead comes down toward the knees. Opening up once again, finding that space, fingertips toward the front of the room, and we begin to come all the way down to the floor. See if we can do it with a long back. Finding our place on the floor, let's bring the feet up to the floor, knees are toward the ceiling. We're going to draw the knees into the chest. Hands are behind the thighs to protect that knee joint. We're going to bring the knees away from each other, away from the body, back together, and then back in. Nice way to open up any tension in the low back. Also relieving stress in the hips. We can go in the other direction. A little brain yoga for you today. Oftentimes there's like a little record skip when you tell your body to go in the other direction. It goes, wait, what? And coming back to center. Beautiful. We'll float the feet down to the floor. Let's bring the hands out to the side body like wings. And then with the breath, so there's your challenge. Move the breath nice and slowly. We float the knees to one side on the exhale. Inhaling them back to center. Exhaling to the other side. You can consider taking the chin over the opposite shoulder in this twist. But moving nice and slowly. Nice. We'll come back to center. Just draw the knees into the chest once again. Hands behind the thighs. Just giving ourselves a little hug here. So as we draw the knees in a little tighter, we get a deeper expansion in that lumbar spine. It does flatten that curve, which is okay in the stretch. Helps to stretch out that area a little bit. Now, if it feels good for you, I'm going to cue a safe way to get a nice flexion here. So we bring the hug in, so we're drawing the knees into the chest. We lift the heart, the gaze is toward the ceiling still. The head is in alignment with the spine. You should feel a little bit of a tension in the neck as we support the spine with the neck. We come forward so the heart center comes toward the knees, and then we can bow the head toward the knees.
Couple of deeper breaths here. Always ensuring long-term safety of the spine. As we come out of this, finding the head in alignment with the spine once again, and gently coming back out. Beautiful. So as we pause here, just finding a place of comfort on the mat, I want you to consider, with the eyes closed, we're just considering the body. So doing a full body scan here. Is there a shape or a stretch that would feel really good to complete your practice today? And if there is, going ahead and getting that movement or opening in now in preparation for Shavasana, our final resting pose of the practice. And if you're ready, going ahead and finding your shape for Shavasana. It's very personal and also varies by the day. And so just tuning in to the place where your body feels really comfortable on the mat. So that might be really wide and spread open in a big starfish. It might be that traditional corpse pose that we see in sort of a regular Shavasana. It might be, since we've done lots of hip openers today, it might feel good to bring the feet together and just allow the knees to rest open to the side with the hands down along by the side body. And so going ahead and just tuning into what feels good in your body. As we find that place, so if you're still moving through your shape or your stretch that completes your practice, going ahead and beginning to find our place of stillness. We're going to walk one shoulder and then the other down along the spine. It's going to give us more support through the shoulder structure, and it also really opens up the chest, allows us to maybe turn those palms skyward, get a little more sensation of openness and acceptance in the upper body. Beginning to once again tune into the breath. We're just gently moving that breath in and out of the body. We're finding a pace that feels consistent and lovely, and we're just allowing the mind and the body to have that gentle interplay. So it's not a full breathing practice or pranayama. We're just finding a really nice, slow, smooth breath that the mind and the body can play with together. You find relaxation in the muscles of the face, a gentle, heavy sensation in the corners of the mouth and in the jaw. And if the mind begins to wander off of the mat before the body, just tuning in to savoring these last few moments of our practice together today. Going ahead and setting those thoughts aside with the intention, the awareness that we'll come back to them when we're done with the practice, with a deeper sense of presence and clarity, coming back to the movement of the breath. Just beginning to gently deepen the breath, allowing each breath to be slightly deeper than the last until we find that place, as we did in the beginning of the practice, where the breath feels nice and expansive, but not forced. And then we'll consider the placement of the hands. If we have the hands on the belly or somewhere else, we're going to bring the backs of the hands down to the floor, so the palms are skyward. And we're going to, with a mudra, consider the placement of the fingers and what a couple of these fingers represent in our mudras. They all have something that they represent. But in our mudras, the pointer finger, the tip of the pointer finger, represents our ego. And that doesn't have the negative connotation that we often apply to it in sort of our Western methods of thinking. It's simply who we are authentically and how we present to the world. That's our ego, is us. That sort of very essence of who we are. And the tip of the thumb represents that balanced energy of the universe. And so when we join them, when we join the tip of the thumb and the tip of the forefinger and allow the other four fingers to either be outstretched or just relaxed, it doesn't matter, we find that really familiar mudra. It's called the Jnana mudra, or the wisdom mudra. And the wisdom here lies in allowing ourselves to be in balance with the balanced energy of the universe. And I think that's really perfect for where we are in time right now, sort of forced to be settled, forced to go inward. And so here with this mudra and a few deeper breaths, we're considering allowing ourselves to come into the flow, to be present, to be accepting, that we're not grasping or attempting to change things that we cannot change. Perfect peace. Take a nice deep breath here. Exhaling with a sigh. Releasing that mudra. And just pausing here with a couple of breaths. As you're ready, we're beginning to tip over onto one side of the body, finding our seat pose. We're cradling the head in that bottom arm, providing comfort for the neck. The knees are as bent as they need to be to support the back so that we're feeling really comfortable here. Find a place of settled comfort. Settle into a few breaths here, just an awareness of the movement of the breath once again. As you're ready, we're lengthening out that top leg, pressing through that front hand. Really lots of intention as we begin to come up into a seated shape to close our practice together. So finding that long spine, once again, you can blanket or not underneath the hips. We're only here for a moment. There's lots of lift here through the belly, lots of radiant chest energy here, openness. And we'll bring our hands to heart center. In the mudra we call Anjali mudra. Honoring heart center, allowing our gaze to be gentle, our eyes closed, bowing our chin to our fingertips as the thumbs rest gently on the upper part of the chest. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide in your practice today. It is always an honor and a pleasure, especially during this time, to share the wealth of yoga with all of you. Until we see each other again virtually, may you have peace in your hearts. May you find joy in small things, and may you be well. Namaste.